For those who don't know, my name is Nadine. I am from Melbourne and it is absolutely freezing cold today, and we had a beautiful day the day before yesterday, so Melbourne weather. Today on the live video I'm going to be talking about relationships, dating and alopecia and how they all interconnect. Before I continue, I just want to make sure that if any children are watching, you just get parental consent to watch this, because it is going to be including some information that you will need parent consent to watch. Also, I will be looking down at my notes every now and then, so excuse me for that. I have a very forgetful brain. Please send through as many questions as you like as you're watching. I probably won't answer them as I'm speaking, but I'm going to go back to all the questions at the end and answer them. And if you have any other questions later on, you can always direct message me, send them directly to the Alopecia page that you're watching from, and we'll respond to you in a confidential way. So, with all that being said, let's get into the nitty-gritty of things. So I have alopecia universalis, but I haven't had that all my life. I have had alopecia areata, where I've just had patches, and I've also had alopecia totalis, where I just lost the hair on my head. So I have an experience in all the three different sections of alopecia, and I've been dating at different points of that as well. So my first experience dating, my first relationship, I was probably around 16, and I only had patches around that time, and I hadn't come out and told anyone voluntarily that I had alopecia. So my doctors knew, my immediate family knew, and that was it. At that point I had alopecia for roughly around 8 years, and I was getting regular treatment at the time. So it was really difficult for me to tell my boyfriend at the time, as you can imagine. I'll tell you the scenario of how I told him. So, very immature of me, but I sent him a message, "We need to talk." And he was panicking, thinking I was probably going to break up with him or something. And he lived quite far from me, so he drove to me and we went to a park, and we sat down in the park and I was facing him and I couldn't bring out the words. I was just so nervous. So after quite a while of sitting face to face, he suggested to maybe sit back to back so I didn't have to look him in the eyes when I was telling him. So we did that, and we sat back to back. The words still couldn't come out of my mouth. I still couldn't tell him I had alopecia. So I decided that it would be easier to write it down on my phone. So I typed the word alopecia on my phone and I gave him my phone. And he didn't know what it was, so he did a Google search. And he was like, "Is that it?" And I just paused, like this thing had been consuming my entire life for 8 years. And then for him it was just, "Is that it?" Like, oh, like that's fine. I think that response may have upset some people, but for me it was such a relief to hear that. It really just made me feel calm, and it was such a great way to, it was such a great response to have, being the first person I had ever told about my condition. So we dated for maybe a year after that, and yeah, that was a nice first experience. So my second experience was my boyfriend after that. I was friends with him for a few years before we started dating, and we always kind of felt something for each other but never did anything about it. And by the time we started dating, I was a lot more open about my alopecia. I had told a few people, so it was quite easy for me to tell him about my condition. Although I just still had patches at this point. I didn't lose all my hair yet. And then while we were dating, I lost all my hair. Well, I made the decision actually to stop treatment, and then I lost all my hair. So we were dating for about maybe 2 years when I was completely bald, and I would sometimes wear wigs, sometimes I wouldn't. And it was a toxic relationship, let me just put that out there first. But I never thought that he had an issue with my alopecia until one day, it was roughly around 2 years into the relationship, I was meeting his extended family. I think it was Easter or some kind of event, and he, in an indirect way, asked me to wear a wig. That didn't go well with me. I was actually, before he asked me of that, was thinking maybe I will wear a wig. But as soon as he asked me that, I was like, hell nah, am I gonna wear a wig? So I did end up going bald, only because he asked me. And that was that relationship, and that ended a while after that. So they are my two main relationships experiences that I've had. But I have had a lot of casual dating where I've met guys, dated them a few times, and yeah, so my experience with that, let's go into that. Right now I am completely open about my alopecia. I probably wear a wig once a year, if that, so everybody knows I'm bald. And I'm always going to a date bald. They always know that I'm going to be bald showing up to the date, but a lot of the time they think I'm bald by choice and that I don't have alopecia. So that topic kind of generally just naturally comes up, and I'm pretty open about answering any of their questions, unless they're rude about it, which has never happened to me, thankfully. And yeah, I always like to be really honest about it from the get-go, because I find that if I leave it too long, I found this more when I had patches and was hiding my patches, or if I was wearing wigs. If I left it too long, you know when you first meet someone and you become friends with them and they tell you their name, but you forget it straight away, and you've been friends with them for a while and you've forgotten their name, and then it's at that point where it's too late to ask and it's such an awkward feeling and you just never know their name. I feel like it's that same awkward feeling where you've known them for too long now, so it's so much harder to tell them you have this condition and haven't told them earlier. Whereas if you tell them from the get-go, it's just cleared from your chest. You haven't invested anything into the relationship if they don't want to be there because of it, so you're not hurt. Yeah, I just find it easier to open up from the get-go, but everybody is different, and I can understand where people come from when they don't want to tell someone that they are dating, and that's totally fine. Let's look what else I got here. Okay, so I told you about my experience of when I like to tell people from first date, early on, smash it out, get it out of the way. But if you don't feel comfortable telling people on the first date or on the third date, that's totally fine, you know. Alopecia is a journey and there's no correct way to do things. So the way I do things might not be the way for you to do things, just naturally. there isn't a lot of pressure on a first date anyway. Like, you're just getting to know each other, and I feel like alopecia it's not something that's inside of you. Like, it doesn't make your personality, so just get to know them on the first date. If you were to ask like when would be a good time, my personal recommendation, I think, like, I was thinking about it for a while, but I think maybe roughly the third date, because at that point you kind of know like if you want to continue seeing them or not, and it's still early on as well. So like I said earlier, if they are not keen because you have alopecia, which I think is very unlikely, you haven't invested too much time. I mean, you've met them 3 times, so you're good to go. What else can I talk about here? Ooh, okay. If you're kissing someone, I like this one. This is a very touchy one for me because I've never liked my head being touched. When I go out, often strangers will just come up to me and rub my head. So I absolutely hate it when people touch my head for that reason. However, when I had patches or when I was wearing wigs, I still also hated people touching my head because I didn't want them to know what was going on under there. So my advice would be, if you are kissing someone and they go to touch your head, just tell them, I don't like my head being touched. Trust me, while they're kissing you, they're not going to be thinking into, oh my gosh, why doesn't she like that? Their mind is elsewhere. So even though I'm openly bald and open about my alopecia, if I was kissing someone and they touched my head, I would still inform them that I don't like my head being touched. And that's totally okay. Everyone's got preferences in life. I know when I was kissing people and had wigs on, my heart would just race so fast because I was like, shit, they're gonna find out. But, you know, it's totally okay to set your boundaries, and they've got to respect that. If they question it, then they're not worth your time. They're really not. Okay, let's talk about intimacy. Wearing wigs if you are sexually active. So personally, I find it annoying wearing a wig to the front door. So hell no would I wear a wig in a situation like that. However, if you are someone that always wears wigs, look, the decision is completely up to you. Some people can handle them a lot better than others. I know people who don't get irritated by wigs at all. So if you feel more comfortable wearing a wig in that situation, go for it, you know. But there's no expectation of that. And if you are doing that with someone, I would assume you have some kind of emotional connection with them. So if you've got that emotional connection with them, they should know that you have alopecia. And if they don't, look, wear your wig if that's what you're more comfortable with. It's pretty simple, straightforward. Everybody, you know, has their own preferences, and just remember that you don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe an explanation to anyone if you don't want to give one. However, if it makes you feel more comfortable and you are very anxious in a situation like that, my suggestion to remove that anxiety is just to be open, because the reaction you get in return is probably going to be a lot less severe than you're imagining in your head. Yes, so that's what I've got to say about that. I'm actually going to read this straight from my notes because I really like what I wrote, and I think it's just a really, really nice message to remember all the time. at the end of the day, the moment you start to care what people think about you is the moment you start to compromise your own happiness. So just think about that. I'll read it again. The moment you start to care what people think about you is the moment you start to compromise your own happiness. People are going to have opinions of you no matter what in life, whether it comes to your alopecia or the way you dress or your sense of humor or just anything. Let me give you an example, right? You can walk into a room where nobody knows you. People in that room are going to form an opinion of you based on their past experiences, no matter what. So you might remind them of their high school bully from 1988. So they're immediately not going to like you. But you might walk into a room with a huge smile and someone will notice that smile and they'll instantly draw a connection to you and want to speak to you and probably end up like having a great time talking to you. So if you let that opinion of the first person affect you, you're letting them control your happiness. And there's no need for that because you didn't do anything to them. It was just something about you, your appearance reminded them, of their high school bully. So yeah, don't let people's opinions change how you feel about yourself. And at the end of the day, if somebody, this is a message for the guys and girls. I know this is very, this talk is more for women, but I hope I'm helping some guys out there if you're watching. What was I going to say? Oh yes, okay. If that person does not want to be with you because of your alopecia, you have to think about it as though you're doing yourself a favor because you've gotten rid of them. You don't need them. If they cannot handle something like alopecia, how would they be able to handle other huge life curveballs that are thrown along the way? You know, life is a roller coaster, so you're always going to be thrown with bumps and things like that. So think about it like that. They're not going to be able to handle your alopecia. They're not going to be able to handle, I don't know, whatever else life throws at you. So better gone. Let's see. Just one last part about if somebody chooses to stay or leave because of your alopecia. I know when I was hiding the fact that I had alopecia from everyone, my biggest concern was what was going to happen. And I built so many different scenarios in my head of people's reactions. Not just people that I was dating, but friends and people on the street and just everyone in general. And those scenarios that I built up in my head were terrible. I always thought of the worst possible outcome and then times that worst possible outcome by 100, and they're the thoughts I had in my head. Realistically, that's not what's going to happen. So think about it this way. You tell somebody you're dating that you have alopecia. Literally only two things can happen. They won't care and they'll stay for what's inside, or they'll leave. So if they stay, you've gained something. If they leave, you haven't lost anything. So the only this like possible situation is you're gonna gain something or stay the same. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to gain a relationship. If this person you're dating will turn into love, let's say, I think that's a much more beautiful thing to gain than to just live in fear. And they're the only two possible outcomes. It's that simple. They will stay or they will leave. You will gain or you will stay the same. The gaining one could be a bit higher, or you'll stay the same. I think that's all I really have to say about my opinions, my experiences with alopecia, relationships and dating. However, I had 6 questions which I asked 2 of my male friends regarding women and alopecia and their opinions. Because I'm not a guy, I've never actually asked a guy if these questions or thought about them in my head. So I thought it would be really interesting to find out the male perspective and see what they had to say about women with alopecia and dating. Okay, so I will read you the question and their answers. My first question was really straightforward. Would you date someone with alopecia? So my first friend said yes, but he got a little bit more specific. So he said if she had patches, when I say patches, I mean lost most of her hair, he would expect her to just shave it off. Not expect her, he didn't say expect her, but he said he would like her to just shave it all off and just be clean shaven rather than leaving like a random patch or something. I know when I had my last patch of hair, it was the hardest thing to let go of that, and I didn't shave it, I just left it. It was like a gross thin little rat tail thing at the back. But I did not have the strength to shave it off, so I just left it. So I can see where he's coming from. Like, if I was in that situation now, I would shave that. But if I only had, I don't know, 3 small patches, I wouldn't shave my entire head. I would just cover it with the rest of my hair. So he related it back to if he had patches in his beard, he would just clean shave it rather than leaving it all patchy and like rugged looking and unclean, his beard. So he kind of related the two, and that was his opinion about it. But at the end of the day, he said he would date someone with alopecia. And then my other friend, complete male answer, 1 word, just said yes. Question 2. Would you expect them to wear a wig? So my first friend said he wouldn't mind either way. He said it's definitely not expected, but he fancies a lady with long hair. So he said it would be nice sometimes if, I don't know, they were dressing up and going out somewhere nice, that she wore like a wig, a long wig sometimes. So that was his opinion. And my other male friend said another my second friend, all his answers were completely just male answers. He said, nah, up to them. Pretty straightforward as well. So the opinion is all yours. The guys don't seem to mind. Question 3. Would you expect them to wear a wig during sexual intercourse? First friend said no, it would get in the way, and I totally agree with him with that. And the second friend, same as the second question, said nah, it's up to them. So he didn't mind either way if they were wearing a wig or not wearing a wig. Question 4. Do you think alopecia or hair loss makes someone less of a woman? And they both completely were shocked by that question and answered no, because hair doesn't make somebody a woman. Question 5 was, what would you do if your family or friends didn't approve of them or made fun of them for having alopecia. The first friend said he would say something, he definitely wouldn't be quiet about it. And the second friend also said he would confront them. So they got your back, no matter what. Question 6 was, when would you expect the person to tell you? For example, the first date, third date, when you feel a connection, when would you want them to tell you? First friend said he wouldn't mind to know on the first date. He said you don't have to start with it, but just leading into it would be nice. And the second friend said whenever they wish. He didn't really mind at all. And they were the 6 questions I asked my 2 male friends to get their perspectives. And I think it's just really nice to know that guys don't look at a woman and concentrate on their hair or their nails or, I don't know, like all these little things that we care about so much. The guys aren't thinking about that. They just want like someone cool to hang out with and, you know, have a laugh and build that connection with. Exactly what we're looking for. And I guess that just sums up everything that I had to say today. I don't know how long have I been going. Oh wow, 25 minutes. Let me look if there's any questions. Hello WA, hi Queensland, hi New South Wales, hi Vic. Hi Elena, hope you're well. Thanks for watching. What lippy are you wearing? I don't know the colour name, but it is the brand Kiko. We don't have it in Australia, you can only get it overseas, sorry. Great advice about impressions, thank you. Too much overthinking, just live with it. Yeah, if you're comfortable with your alopecia, definitely it would be overthinking it, but a lot of people aren't at the point that you sound like you're at. And I was at that point at one stage where I couldn't not overthink things and just live with it. And it's understanding, like I said, we're all on a journey. And when we get to the point where we are more comfortable with it, we will be there with you, not overthinking it. So that's totally fine. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Marley. That's very sweet. Others think, I actually think guys are pretty simple, really, or most are. I agree with you, Greg. Guys are simple. I think that's why I like their company and just hanging out with them, because it's just, yeah, like you said, a lot more simple. Shannon, my 3-year-old has alopecia too. I think you're a very pretty lady. Oh, thank you. And I hope your 3-year-old is going through their alopecia okay as well. Okay, that looks like it is the end of the questions and comments. Like I said at the start of the video, if you've got any other questions, concerns about relationships, dating and alopecia, please just message me or message the Australia Alopecia Areata Foundation page, and we'll respond to you in a confidential manner where your privacy will be kept. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and got something out of this. Yeah, thank you, bye.